Hey, welcome back to AI Tech Hub. I'm Cody. I am so pumped you're here today because we're tackling a foundational tool that literally changes how you get work done. We're doing an explainer on Git. Now, if you've spent even a minute around software, you've definitely heard the name thrown around. But today, we're skipping all the complicated jargon. We're going to look right under the hood at the actual mechanics of what it is. By the end of this explainer, you'll know exactly how Git operates and, way more importantly, why it is absolutely indispensable for modern collaboration.
So, that brings us to a pretty massive question right out of the gate. Why does basically every developer use Git every single day? Like, what makes this specific system a daily necessity and not just some optional add-on? Well, let's picture a scenario. Imagine you're writing this highly detailed, super complex document. Okay, now imagine you're writing it with 5 other people. You're all editing the exact same file simultaneously, and here's the kicker: you have absolutely zero version history. Think about that for a second. It's a complete nightmare, right? You've got someone typing out this brilliant new paragraph while someone else just accidentally overwrites their entire section. Somebody tweets a critical line, and suddenly the whole thing makes zero sense. And the absolute worst part of all this, nobody knows who changed what or when they even did it. Just pure, unadulterated chaos.
Without Git, we're just living in the wild west of document editing. Work gets constantly overwritten, files get totally lost in the shuffle, and quite literally, nobody knows what just changed. It is an insanely stressful way to work. But Git completely fixes this. Instead of everyone fighting over one single blinking cursor on a page, Git lets multiple people work on the exact same project at the exact same time, but in a highly structured way. It takes all of those separate little efforts and just smoothly, cleanly combines everyone's work back together. It's basically the difference between a total free-for-all and a beautifully orchestrated symphony.
So how in the world does it actually pull off this organizational miracle? Well, it all starts with our very first core concept, the commit. A commit is, at its heart, a snapshot. Think of it kind of like a photograph. Every single time you save meaningful progress on your project, Git snaps a picture of exactly what your entire project looks like at that very split second. It locks it in. It's not just hitting save and overwriting your old file like we usually do. No, this creates a permanent historical record of that moment in time. And because Git is taking these continuous snapshots, you suddenly have the ultimate safety net. You can jump back to any snapshot at any time. So if you mess up or the project suddenly breaks, there's no panic. You just flip back through your history of commits and restore the project to exactly how it was when everything worked perfectly. It is your foundational save point.
Now, building on those snapshots, what happens when you want to try something a little dangerous? That is exactly where Git introduces the branch. Let's say you've got your secure history of commits, but suddenly you have this wild new idea, a risky change that might completely wreck everything if it doesn't pan out. Normally, you'd be terrified to even try it, but with Git, you just branch off. A branch is basically a completely separate, isolated copy of your project. It's like your own personal sandbox. You can jump into this branch, run wild, break things, rewrite entire sections, all while the original, stable version of your project just sits there completely untouched and perfectly safe. You are totally free to take risks, because in this separate space, you absolutely cannot step on anyone else's toes, not even your own.
But what if that risky experiment actually pays off? What if you try something crazy in your isolated branch and it turns out to be absolute genius? Well, that brings us to the third major concept, and that is the merge. Merging is this incredibly satisfying process where you take that separate copy, your successful experimental branch, and you cleanly combine it right back into the main project. And Git is seriously smart about this. It looks at the original project, it looks at the brilliant new stuff you did in your branch, and it seamlessly stitches them together. Plus, remember, because you were safely in a branch, a bunch of other people could have been working in their own branches at the exact same time. Git just helps weave everyone's successful work back in, piece by piece. And hey, what if your risky experiment was a total disaster? Honestly, no problem at all. You literally just delete the branch. The main project is still sitting there completely unharmed.
Okay, let's actually tie all this together into the practical, day-to-day workflow you'd use. It goes exactly like this. Step 1, you're working along, making good progress, so you take a snapshot. You make a commit. Boom, foundation is locked in. Step 2, you get a crazy idea you want to test, so you branch off. You spin up that safe, separate copy to make a risky change without touching the main project. You do your thing in total isolation. Then, step 3, the moment of truth. If the work is solid, you merge it cleanly back into the main project so the whole team benefits. If it's terrible, just delete the branch and pretend it never happened. Zero consequences. This step-by-step cycle is literally the beating heart of how thousands of developers collaborate on massive projects without the whole thing collapsing.
And honestly, that brings us right to the core takeaway for this entire explainer. When you watch thousands of developers seamlessly building one single project together, it can legitimately look like magic. But as the saying goes, it's not magic, it's just a really, really good save system. Git was built from the ground up to empower people to work at the same time. It gives you the freedom to experiment safely, the security of a perfect historical record, and the power to collaborate with a massive team without ever getting in each other's way. By turning your basic saves into permanent snapshots and giving you those safe branches to play around in, it completely transforms the chaos of group editing into this incredibly efficient machine.
And that wraps up our dive into the mechanics of Git. I really hope this explainer helped demystify how developers manage to work together so smoothly, and maybe even got you thinking about how having the ultimate save system could change how you tackle your own projects. If you found this breakdown helpful and want to keep leveling up your tech knowledge, definitely drop a follow. We break down a fascinating new concept in every single explainer, taking the complex stuff and making it crystal clear. So, before you dive into your next big group project, ask yourself, are you still roughing it in the Wild West, or are you finally ready to use the ultimate save system? I'm Cody, thanks so much for hanging out with me on AI Tech Hub, and I'll see you in the next one.